Make no mistake, empathy is not weak or woke. And by the way, woke just means you give a damn about other people.
For the better part of 6 decades, Jane Fonda has been a force to be reckoned with.
I became a political activist in the 70s, involved in trying to end the war in Vietnam.
This is a woman who has been standing up for her beliefs, and it has cost her.
Jane Fonda is an outrageous liar.
She's the most despicable woman.
I consider Jane Fonda one of the most courageous women of our time.
Some of your activism stemmed from this feeling you got from your dad.
I mean, you spent all of your life trying to please him.
You felt as though there was a conspiracy to hide the truth from you about your mother.
We knew life was becoming unraveled. I came home from school one day. My father and my grandmother were sitting in the living room, and they sat me down and they said, "Your mother died of a heart attack." My father took me to the Union Station with my suitcase and put me on the train to boarding school. He was newly married. He was in a play on Broadway and making films, and I couldn't continue living at home with him. A year after my mother died, I was in study hall, and a girlfriend passed me a movie magazine in which it said that my mother had cut her throat. I sat on the edge of my bed thinking, what's the matter with me? Why can't I cry? I was floundering. My father called me frivolous and lazy. He didn't realize that I was suffering.
Jane was a talented actor like her father, but she was driven to do more.
I wanted my life to have meaning. I became an activist because of Dad. He stood up for the underdog, fairness and justice. He was a hero to so many people. I wanted to prove to him that I could also stand up for justice. There was so much catching up to do about Vietnam and about Native Americans and about what was happening to Black people. How could I have reached the age of 32 in such ignorance? I felt so guilty. All of a sudden become an overnight righteous activist.
Ms. Fonda is quite active in the peace movement, the civil rights field.
People felt very suspicious about my motives. You are a rich movie star. Why do you care? Why are you involving yourself in this?
What in the world is the matter with Jane Fonda? She's a great actress. She looks pretty, but boy, she's off on a wrong track.
Jane refused to back down, but when she took her activism overseas, she made a huge mistake.
I didn't quite know what I was doing or how to make proper use of my celebrity. So much had happened so quickly. Nixon was bringing ground troops home, and he was saying that he was ending the war, when in fact it wasn't.
And then in your trip, you were photographed behind aerial gun, the North Vietnamese.
I will go to my grave regretting that.
What were you doing behind an enemy gun?
I wasn't even thinking what I was doing. And that image went out, and the image makes it look like I was against our soldiers, which was never the case. I had been working with soldiers prior to that and for years after that, and I knew right away that was wrong. I'm naive and I make mistakes, but it was my fault that I sat there.
Jane Fonda is an outrageous liar. She is a hypocrite and a liar.
She's the most despicable woman.
I don't care if she's a tender young female, a famous movie star. That is treason.
Actress Jane Fonda was arrested today at the airport in Cleveland.
I will never forget the day I was aware that I was being followed, and there was very little attempt to disguise it. There'd be these guys in trench coats with dark glasses. I was traveling from Canada, and I had a suitcase filled with vitamin pills and little envelopes, and they busted me for drug trafficking. The arresting officer said to me, "I'm working on orders from the White House." They needed a very visible person who represented the peace movement to do something really terrible. And that was me.
Well, how did it feel to know that the President of the United States was targeting you personally?
He wanted to figure out how they could get me for treason. And so he assigned to the Justice Department to find a way, and they ended up coming back to him and saying, she didn't commit treason. You should focus on somebody who's really a danger. I was exonerated.
Jane realized true activism meant putting others' needs before her own.
You've been taking your public by surprise recently. From where I am, it looks like a different Jane Fonda.
Oh, I think you're right. I think I am different.
To men who were in Vietnam, who who I hurt. I owe them an apology. I was trying to help. I was thoughtless and careless about it, and I am very sorry that I hurt them. And I want to apologize to them and to their families. I've gotten many, many letters from Vietnam veterans who indicate that they have healed and that they are forgiving.
I consider Jane Fonda one of the most courageous women of our time because she made a conversion from a life that was so sterile and easy to live into a life that's filled with harassments and ridicule and requires real courage.
I've become, a full, whole human being, finally.
Having learned from her mistakes, Jane supported her father for who he was instead of who she wanted him to be.
Nobody talked about feelings in our family. People didn't, it was verboten to talk about feelings. There was very little empathy or understanding. It's not that people didn't want to be, they just didn't know how.
And on his deathbed, she was there for him when he needed her the most.
Sitting by my father's bedside as he was dying, wouldn't say anything. I wanted him to tell me that he loved me, and I wanted to ask him questions. And I knelt at his feet and looked up at him, and I told him that I loved him and I knew he'd done the best that he could. I reached out and I touched his arm, and he put his hand up. But I saw the tears in his eyes. And, it meant the world to me. I feel so lucky.
And after his death, Jane learned how her father truly felt all along.
There was an interview with your father that was done in 1974, and he said, and I quote, "Jane is the best actress I know."
I couldn't be more proud. She's not only this incredible actress, but she's the activist. You're proud of that part of her? I'm in awe.
You surprised?
He never told me that. I had no idea that he admired me.
There's a lot of people out there that feel that they're being bullied, that they're being pushed around. And there's so many Henry Fonda films where the core idea is you have to stand up for the little guy.
Justice, fairness.
By committing herself to change and standing up for others, Jane found her true purpose.
I think you have to be intentional in the way you do your life.
It's my honor to present the Screen Actors Guild Life Achievement Award to you, the sublime Jane Fonda.
We need to call upon our empathy and not judge, but listen from our hearts. We must not isolate. We must stay in community. We must help the vulnerable. We must find ways to project an inspiring vision of the future, one that is beckoning, welcoming. So let's be brave. Let's make it so. Thank you for this encouragement. Thank you.